Democracies, like any other system, have their strengths and their weaknesses. Foreign players try to exploit the weaknesses of a democracy, which is a national security threat. Today, I will tell you step by step how BJP understood this threat 7 years ago. But in the last 3 years, the Home Minister Amit Shah has done a surgical strike with military planning on this threat of weaknesses of democracy being exploited by foreign players. I will tell you about two names, but they are just two names. It's a larger conspiracy. George Soros and Peter Omidyar, billionaires with a very lethal plan. But that plan has not started today. That plan has been a part of Indian system since 1947 when we got independence. It is only in the last 3 years that systematically it is being dismantled. As I told you, I'll be doing topics on this English YouTube channel at least twice a week, and they will be a little in depth. So if you are joining for the first time, please subscribe to the channel. Please like it. Most of you have seen me on the Hindi YouTube. This would be twice a week in depth on major challenges or opportunities that I see of India, our culture, our Sanskriti. So it will cover those sort of topics. Now, let me start first by what is the biggest weakness of a democracy. The biggest weakness of a democracy is also its biggest strength, free speech. You, me, citizens, we do free speech based on our feelings, which could be pro any party or any person, and we have a free election. We exercise our mandate, we choose our leaders. But how this becomes a weakness is when foreign players buy your speech or buy the speech of media to create agenda. And if you think that this is an Indian perspective, let me tell you, US Department of Homeland Security, which has the basic duty, the mandate of ensuring security in US, it also understands the threat of a democracy being exploited. You have seen about Russian interference with elections. You have seen about China interference in election. These are the topics of conversation in US. In Canada, they have become a huge debate. Are Chinese interfering in the election? Because the weakness of democracy is global in all democratic systems. And this weakness, US Homeland Security, I'm quoting from it now, defines malign actions taken by foreign governments or actors designed to sow discord, manipulate public discourse, discredit the electoral system, bias the development of policy, disrupt the markets for the purposes of undermining the interest of United States and its allies. See the words, manipulate public discourse. What is happening in foreign funded media in India? See, discredit the electoral system. EVMs are being hacked. Classical, so that you don't trust in the democracy. Bias the development of policy. Frame policies which are not in favor of India or create so much ruckus. Anti-CAA protests. Nothing affects anybody in India except citizenship to people who are facing persecution in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. But how the narrative gets created or the false agenda on any policy of the government, all funded from abroad. And I will tell you about the massive money, and just two examples I told you I will give you. First, George Soros. Second, Peter Omidyar. So BJP by 2016 realized this danger because it saw how narratives are being spun, intolerance in India, where it's been the most peaceful, the most tolerant nation, not from today, from times immemorial. No religion faced persecution in India. Jews found their homeland in India and they acknowledged the only country they never faced any discrimination or persecution. Parsis, such a tiny microscopic community, extremely rich. Most countries, microscopic, extremely rich communities face anger and face persecution because people want to acquire their wealth. In India, they have flourished and they are the one of the most respected communities of India, like any other respected community. But never did they face persecution. That is the ethos of India. But foreign agenda will try to spin it differently. So when BJP started understanding this in 2015-16, they took one step or two steps. The Open Society network of George Soros, they put it under scanner. That means that foreign money which was being sent by Open Society to Indian NGOs, could not come without prior permission of the Home Ministry. They challenged it in High Court, they did not get relief. But this was not sufficient because there were so many other institutions sending foreign money to India. And the danger you will understand when I quote you figures. 58,000 crore rupees came to NGOs registered under FCRA between 2016-17 to 2018-19. 60,000 crores in 3 years. That is when I think BJP woke up. They saw that there is a 10x increase in foreign money coming in. Fundamentally, one question. All these countries, you go to Europe, you go to US, you go to any country, they have so much problems of poverty, of drug abuse, of homelessness. So why is that money not being spent there and being brought to India? Clearly, because what US Homeland Security defines as a threat to India to create a biased narrative. Also, there are other NGOs. I'm not going into the NGOs coming from Middle East or even from certain of these quarters where the agenda is religious conversion, which is also a national threat. So between media discord, media agenda, and conversions, you have a blueprint of 60,000 crores coming in 3 years, a multiple time increase because they need to do it because the government is not supporting their activities. Earlier, you just need to have some money because the government is not trying to stop it. So, this threat, once is understood, that's when the military plan starts because it is so scientific and they have done it in such a studied manner, if I may say so, that you will understand the beauty of it. So, first thing they did is they created a law. They made an amendment to FCRA. That amendment, the salient points of that would be first, it stopped public servants from receiving foreign donation. Second, the NGOs registered under FCRA will not be able to use more than 20% of their funds for administrative expenses. Earlier, 50% could be used. So if 60,000 crores net is coming in, 30,000 crores is administrative expenses. Administrative expenses, what? Effectively salaries. So if you bring money, saying I'm bringing 10 crores to make a school, if you make the building of the school, you cannot do your agenda. But if out of that 10 crore, 50%, 5 crores you can use to distribute money to people, then those people placed in media, in academia, in influential posts obviously will do the agenda you want them to do. The one who pays the DJ decides the music which will play in the party, and the party is Indian democracy. So that was a body blow. Third, in order to be registered under FCRA or renewal of their applications, foreigners will have to submit a lot of details because in every such NGO, there used to be one or two foreigners supervising, guiding. So effectively, you curb the foreigners in NGO, even though there are a lot of Indians who are dancing to their agenda, but still you can create a distinction. Fourth, you will require clearances from all departments which are relevant, finance as well as home. Fifth, you will have to receive all the money in State Bank of India in Delhi. You will have to have a principal headquarter. Technology has enabled that. Earlier, money would come in some bank in some rural part of India, spread across multiple banks, and it will be a lot of inquiry for the government to collect the data. Now you will know in 1 year how much money has come into that NGO. Sixth, you will not be able to fund other NGOs. Whatever money you bring, you'll have to use yourself. You can't say, oh, I gave it to this NGO. That is called circular transactions. Money laundering, ED offense is different, right? But that's the same modus operandi. You get money, you are registered, then you distribute money. So that distribution of money stopped. So these laws came. Immediately a panic started. Immediately they decided that we will challenge this in Supreme Court. The people in every leftist media outlet in India started a campaign that democracy is under assault. Why? Because foreign money to NGOs is being regulated, not stopped. That's the number two part of this military operation of Amit Shah. Once it goes to court, because They had collected all the data already. They were able to argue in court that there is no fundamental right to receive foreign money. And the court gave, I believe, an outstanding judgment beyond what anybody was expecting, because they went to the root of the matter, the fundamentals. They said, and that's the fundamental point, whether your KYC can be done, whether a foreigner can be under scrutiny, whether a public servant can receive money, whether it can be distributed, administrative expenses, that is all separate arguments, right? But if the root is taken away, none of these arguments survive, and the court went to the root. The court judgment came in April 2022. This law had come in September 20. After 4 years of recognizing the danger, from 16 to 20, the law came. 22, it went to court. Until that time, the government was operating slowly. It was stopping registrations, it was cancelling registrations, but slowly. After this judgment, you will see how the process accelerated. But the two best points of the judgment: point one, no right in a citizen to receive foreign contribution. The court said, nothing doing, you have no fundamental right to receive foreign money. Second, foreign aid ought to be kept at a minimal, as it can have a material impact on socio-economic and political development of a country. That means the court recognizes the danger, and that's a danger which US Homeland Security also recognizes. So those who say India made there is a lack of democracy or transparency should understand that. Third aspect, they said that foreign contribution creates the presence of a foreign contributor. That foreign contributor has its own agenda. Very simple. And fourth, the inflow of foreign money almost doubled between 10 to 19, and the government had to cancel 19,000 NGOs. So net, the court says, it is open to state to have a regime which may completely prohibit the receipt of foreign donation, as no right inheres in the citizens to receive foreign donation. Basically, you don't have fundamental right to receive foreign money, and this government has regulated it. Court went one step further. They said they can completely ban it if they want to. There are a lot of good NGOs, let me put it like that. The NGOs, usually NRIs, those who have risen to a good place outside India, and they want to make a school in their village. They want to make a mandir, a gurdwara in their village. They want to contribute to a college, to a hospital. That's a different NGO. So the government is not banning it, which is sensible. But then there are absolute foreign players, a George Soros, a Peter Omidyar. What do they have to send money to India? That is where the government wants to regulate it. Though the court has said you can ban it also. Now let me come to George Soros, and then I will come to Peter Omidyar. You may not have heard of him. Now, George Soros said that the biggest and the most frightening setback occurred in India. He has a clear agenda. So setback to his agenda. Let me tell you, he created a $1 billion fund. This is serious money. This is not chicken shit. This is serious money. He created $1 billion fund to fight those regimes he does not like. And in those regimes he does not like, number one is Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India. Because he himself says the biggest and the most frightening setback occurred in India, where a democratically elected Narendra Modi is creating a Hindu nationalist state, imposing punitive measures on Kashmir, a semi-autonomous Muslim region, and threatening to deprive millions of Muslims of their citizenship. Please understand, that is the fundamental debate which started in India. Ek desh, ek nishan, do nishan nahi honge. You will not have two symbols. This Article 370, a semi-autonomous region. There are others who call it an autonomous region. That is why it was very essential to finish this nonsense of 370 article. And that nonsense was a declaration of war, because it was in India's interest, by people like George Soros and Peter Omidyar. So what does he do? He has a 1 billion fund. He says Modi is the biggest setback. So the method he operates is this. He offers fellowships and scholarships to people who want to study abroad. The way they do this is this: either journalists or children of bureaucrats are usually enticed by this. It's very expensive to study abroad. You know that. It's almost, what, 50 lakh rupees a year? If you're going to a good university with your food, eating, blah, blah, blah expenses, US or UK, 50 lakhs a year. If you get a scholarship from George Soros, you think it happens to people who are nationalistic in their mindset? No, of course not. But how better to influence people than say, oh, he got a scholarship to this university, and they fund those universities also. And we are paying for him. What would that journalist not do? Plus, it launches them in their career. So you got a scholarship to a A-list university. Then once you come back, you have a degree from that university, and that ecosystem promotes you. See, this guy, he studied in a school in India. What does he know? We have a person who studied in this university on scholarship. Let us place him very highly. So it becomes a cycle of buying influence. Communist Russia used to do it. USSR used to do it. US used to do it very famously, in still does, in Africa, Asia, because they have made their universities aspirational. Bureaucrat sons, politician sons, journalists, all people who have a disproportionate influence in public policy. Pre-social media, they had exclusive voice. So I, Ishkaran Singh Bhandari, could not even speak to you. But you would be speaking by writing in media, you would be speaking by being a politician or framing a policy. All those would be captured like this. That is what Open Society George Soros does. Third aspect of his is American Media Watchdog, founded in 1987, found out that 30 major news organizations have links to George Soros. Obviously, you can guess the name of that. Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, Associated Press, National Public Radio, ABC, Huffington Post. Now think, how often do they attack India? All these newspapers. It's a big ecosystem, always attacking a country which has become the fifth largest economy. They will never have an article about the Indian miracle, a country of 140 crore people with diverse languages, diverse religions, is becoming an economic powerhouse. Have you ever read that article in New York Times or Washington Post? Very basic article. Sometimes the lack of an article shows in itself all that you need to see. Though, if you Google, you will find hundreds of articles how India as a democracy is not functioning, democracy is in danger. I said dynasties are in danger, not democracy. How India is failing, how religious intolerance is rising, how human rights don't exist, how media freedom doesn't exist, blah, 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 blah. Why? Because all funded and a part of an ecosystem. Then let us come to it. 48 million George Soros spent between 2003 to 2009 in these media organizations, directly linkable. Scholarships, etc., you can calculate differently. So once this law came and Supreme Court upheld it, it became very difficult for people like George Soros to operate in India. So what happens then now? Next step that happens is corruption. And there is when I come to Peter Omidyar. Peter Omidyar, one of the richest people in the world, 24th richest person in the world. Net worth in billions of dollars, they say $9-10 billion. Technology entrepreneur, philanthropist. But before I come to him, you will have to hear after the judgment what the government did. It started income tax proceedings, surveys on a lot of these so-called NGOs and media and policy think tanks. It's all, I'm using it synonymously. Media, NGO, think tanks, it's an ecosystem. One of the biggest which happened in recent days, and Mani Shankar Iyer, the one who went to Pakistan, said, "Inhe laiye, hame laiye, inhe hataiye." Or Rahul Gandhi's trips to all these countries that he is going to. Interestingly, Varun Gandhi got an offer or invite from Oxford Union to come and speak on all this, which is way more prestigious than these trips where you're addressing students. Refused, saying Indian issues have to be discussed in India, Indian parliament, Indian media has enough space to discuss any issue critically or whether you want to support it. Both options are open. To ask for foreigners, that is not required. Anyways, be that as it may be, sticking to the topic, in these raids, one of the organizations which came under scanner is CPR. It's 19 going on from 1970s. It does some good work, but you just need 3, 4 key people to, amongst the good policy work you do agenda work. Incidentally, the president of CPR, the head, the one controlling, is daughter of Mr. Manish Shankar. And you know Mr. Manish Shankar Iyengar's views very clearly, and her writings are also extremely clear. You don't need to read much into it. Remember Homeland Security. Sow discord, create divide, question the electoral process. That's a homeland security issue being done so beautifully in India. Now I will come to Peter Omidyar. Now Perry Omidyar, sorry. The problem which they first suffered now is because FCRA license became difficult, how do they send money to India? What will happen? One guess. Comment. Before I speak, just comment. One guess. What do you think happened? Corruption. They started bribing people to get FCRA license. FCRA bribery scandal. 11th May 2022. Judgment comes, and then suddenly they realize now we need to bribe people to get license because as per laws we won't be able to get them. So 3 organizations came under a scanner of RBI in September 2021. Law was passed in 20, then they came in scanner because after the law is passed, some complied, some could not comply. Those who do not comply, it became easy for government to now understand what is happening from an entire tangled web of 50 years where you could do nothing. By creating a new law, military planning, getting new applications, people who were clear could submit it. Those who were not could not, or those who were submitting were lying or hiding facts. The government could narrow down. Okay, these are the institutions, or these are the NGOs, or these are the think tanks we need to put under surveillance. They put it under surveillance. 3 NGOs, one US, say Omidyar Network International, Humanity United, Stardust. These are the same ones which also fund are related to Press Freedom Index, which rates India lower than Pakistan, Sri Lanka, God knows every other country in the world. So that is how the interconnections come out. Then they attack illiberal democracies. Omidyar Network has promised 992 million, again a billion. Maybe they didn't want to put a billion because that catches a lot of headlines. So 2 billion by just 2 people. See how many other will come out. To fight illiberal democracies, and they fund a lot of media outlets, including Scroll. You've seen Scroll, right? CBI files an FIR regarding FCRA funding scam in which 37 people, including 6 government officials employed in FCRA division, have been caught. A spokesman for CBI said that we wanted to nab representatives of NGOs, middlemen, and public servants of Foreign Contribution Regulation Act who were receiving bribes to issue licenses. Raids on 40 locations, multiple cities, Delhi, Rajasthan, Chennai, Hyderabad, Coimbatore, Mysore, blah, 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 based on tip from Home Ministry. Because the Home Ministry now has the data. It can understand what's happening. It can see how are these licenses being given without complying with the law so that you escape government scrutiny. And that FIR has named promoters of NGO Omidyar Network, supported by eBay founder Pierre Omidyar. And now arrests have happened. Almost 2 crores in Hawala has been given as a bribe. So in the end, as I said, a problem was identified of foreign money. That problem, after being identified, 2-3 organizations were put on watch. That wasn't sufficient. Law was changed by FCRA. That law resulted in people submitting their applications, coming under scanner. It was challenged in Supreme Court. Supreme Court, I think, went the full hog, addressed the root, said no right to receive foreign money. Regulation is obviously a lot less, which the government has done. Then it started doing income tax surveys. Then CPR and other have been barred, suspended, or banned, depending on the case to case, from receiving foreign money. Then last option, bribery, which has been tried, and they have caught 6 officers sitting in FCRA Once you catch six, everybody else freezes up. They know it has become a high priority. They know these arrests were made on tip by the Home Ministry to CBI. They know Home Ministry is keeping a hawk's eye on this because they have understood foreign money is the way they seek to exploit the weakness of any democracy, US or India, matter of grave national security threat, and that is why it is being nipped in the bud. It is being cleaned out. Do subscribe and watch the channel. We'll discuss such issues twice a week. Bharat Mata ki Jai.